The Truth Can Change Your Life YouTube channel. Interesting leak, a second NASA scientist tells us that somebody else is on the moon. We live in a strange world, and as Neil Armstrong once said, there are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of the truth's protective layers. Source. Fast forward to today, and a number of people have become aware of the fact that not all of what goes on behind the scenes is made public. This is precisely why the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, was created. It's a federal Freedom of Information law that allows for the full or partial disclosure of previously unreleased information and documents controlled by the United States government. There are still many obstacles in the way of full transparency, one of which is the use of national security to keep information classified and hidden from public viewing. This has become more evident with the revelations of WikiLeaks and Edward Snowden. But the problem goes deeper still. Did you know that the U.S. government classifies roughly 500 million pages of documents every single year? This is a completely separate topic in itself, and if you're interested in learning more about this, you can check out our article about the black budget. NASA scientists and what they say about the moon. Multiple NASA personnel have made some pretty shocking claims about the moon. George Leonard, a NASA scientist and photo analyst who obtained various official NASA photographs of the moon, many of which he published in his book titled Somebody Else is on the Moon, is just one of these personnel. Although the photos are small in size and their resolution is not up to today's standards, they show details of original, massive prints. While Leonard published the identifying code numbers of the photos in his works to back up their source, we still can't say for sure that they were real, and their poor resolution only makes matters worse. Far more compelling than these photos are his statements about what was found on the moon, along with his verified NASA credentials. Leonard was not the only one with a credible background trying to tell the world the truth regarding the moon and the photos that were taken from the Apollo missions. Ladies and gentlemen, my government, NASA, which many of us in the United States say stands for Never a Straight Answer, proceeded to erase 40 rolls of film of the Apollo program, the flight to the moon, the flight around the moon, the landings on the moon, the walking guys here and there. They erased, for Christ's sake, 40 rolls of film of those events. Now we're talking about several thousand individual frames that were taken that the so-called authorities determined that you did not have a right to see. Oh, they were disruptive, socially unacceptable, politically unacceptable. I've become furious. I'm a retired command sergeant major. I was never famous for having a lot of patience. Source. The quote above is from Bob Dean, who was speaking at a conference in Europe. Bob is a retired U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major, and he also served at the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe, SHAPE, of NATO as an intelligence analyst. When it comes to the UFO phenomenon, we now have public disclosure of thousands of documents along with hundreds of credible witness testimonies. But that is a separate topic, which you can learn more about here. It's also important to note here that the Russian government recently called for an international investigation into the U.S. moon landings regarding the disappearance of film footage from the original moon landing in 1969. They are also referring to the, approximately, 400 kilograms of lunar rock that was obtained during multiple missions between 1969 and 1972. Source. Leonard argued that NASA knew about extraterrestrial activity on the moon and attempted to hide that information. He's not the only one to make such an assertion. Read the books, read the lore, start to understand what has really been going on, because there is no doubt that we are being visited. The universe that we live in is much more wondrous, exciting, complex and far-reaching than we were ever able to know up to this point in time. Mankind has long wondered if we're alone in the universe. But, only in our period do we really have evidence. No, we're not alone. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, SCD, NASA astronaut, sixth man to walk on the moon. Here is a clip of NASA astronaut Dr. Brian O'Leary saying the same thing. Leonard is not the only NASA scientist to say some strange things about the moon. Recently, a plasma scientist by the name of Dr. John Brandenburg said the same thing. He was the deputy manager of the Clementine mission to the Moon, which was part of a joint space project between the Ballistic Missile Defense Organization, BMDO, and NASA. The mission discovered water at the Moon's poles in 1994. Source, page 16 of 18. Source. According to Brandenburg in an interview from this documentary, it was the Clementine mission, a photo reconnaissance mission basically to check out if someone was building bases on the Moon that we didn't know about. Were they expanding them? He then went on to state that, of all the pictures I've seen from the Moon that show possible structures, the most impressive is a picture of a miles-wide rectilinear structure. This looked unmistakably artificial, and it shouldn't be there. As somebody in the space defense community, I look on any such structure on the Moon with great concern because it isn't ours. There's no way we could have built such a thing. It means someone else is up there. If you were to tell the average person that you think another civilization, advanced enough to have mastered space travel, had been to the Moon before we got there and is possibly still going there, you would, without a doubt, receive some very peculiar looks in return. On the other hand, if that other person were to decide to hear you out, you would probably get their attention pretty quickly. For some, this type of information can be overwhelming, even terrifying, and that's okay. Many people are not ready to open their minds up to these possibilities, but the truth of the matter is, it's something we are going to have to confront eventually. We are clearly heading towards the inevitable reality of extraterrestrial contact, that is, if we smarten up and start taking care of our planet to the best of our ability. Perhaps we can make it long enough to realize this future, or maybe it's coming sooner than we think. NASA releases strange music heard by 1969 astronauts. The Apollo 10 command module Charlie Brown piloted by U.S. astronaut John W. Young is seen from the lunar module Snoopy after SEPA. The Apollo 10 command module Charlie Brown piloted by U.S. astronaut John W. Young is seen from the lunar module Snoopy after separation in lunar orbit on May 22, 1969. NASA has made public a recording of strange music that astronauts reported hearing in 1969 while on the far side of the Moon, out of radio contact with the Earth. The story behind these unusual whistling noises was showcased Sunday night in a show on the cable channel Discovery, as part of a series called NASA's Unexplained Files. The noises reportedly were heard in May 1969 by the Apollo 10 astronauts as they circled the Moon, months before the first astronauts stepped foot on the lunar surface on July 21 that same year. The three astronauts on board were Thomas Stafford, John Young, and Eugene Cernan. The sounds, which lasted about an hour, were recorded and transmitted to Mission Control in Houston. A transcript of the text was released in 2008, but the actual audio has only just been made public. "You hear that? That whistling sound?" asks Cernan, describing it as outer space-type music. The trio felt the sounds were so strange that they debated whether or not to tell the chiefs at NASA, for fear they wouldn't be taken seriously and could be dropped from future space missions, according to the Discovery show. NASA says the sounds could not have been alien music. An engineer from the U.S. Space Agency said the noises likely came from interference caused by radios that were close to each other in the lunar module and the command module. Astronaut Al Worden, who flew on Apollo 15, disputed that explanation, saying logic tells me that if there was something recorded on there, then there's something there, according to the Discovery show. But Michael Collins, the pilot of Apollo 11, who became the first person to fly around the far side of the Moon by himself while Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong were walking on the surface, said he too heard an eerie woo-woo sound but accepted the explanation of radio interference. In fact, he'd been warned ahead of time, he wrote in his book, Carrying the Fire, An Astronaut's Journeys. "Had I not been warned about it, it would have scared the hell out of me," he wrote. Fortunately the radio technicians, rather than the UFO fans, had a ready explanation for it. It was interference between the LMs and command modules VHF radios. Share our messages with love and gratitude. Help the Truth Can Change Your Life channel to raise the vibration, and share and subscribe this article with your family and friends.